Hello! Welcome to English for Everyone, where we practice real-life American English. Today we're going to learn to avoid some common mistakes, so let's get started. First, this is not correct.
We specifically call this workbook English as a Lifestyle because I truly believe that English has to be learned in an inspiring way.
It's not correct to say the English has to be learned in an inspiring way. When I talk about languages, English for example, the article the is not necessary. We cannot use the article the. We have to say English. English can be learned in an inspiring way. Again, it's correct to say English can be learned in an inspiring way. But I cannot say the English can be learned in an inspiring way. Because when you talk about languages, don't use the article the. Example, I think Chinese is a difficult language to learn. I cannot say I think the Chinese is a difficult language. If you're talking about languages, don't use the. I think Chinese is a difficult language to learn. Let's practice. What do you think? Do you think Chinese is a difficult language to learn? That's right. I think Chinese is a difficult language to learn. This is also not correct.
Someone who's charismatic has magnetic personality. Most of creators on YouTube are really charismatic because they attract attention.
We cannot say someone who's charismatic has magnetic personality. In this case, personality is countable, so we have to say a magnetic personality. It's correct to say someone who's charismatic has a magnetic personality. This can be confusing because the word personality is countable sometimes and sometimes it's not. Let's look at the difference. The word personality is not countable if I say he has personality. When I say he has personality, that means he's not boring. He's fun to talk to. He has personality. In this case, it's not countable and we don't use a. Just he has personality. But if I use an adjective like magnetic or good, I have to say a. In this case, personality is countable. Example, he has a good personality, or he has a magnetic personality. Because I'm using an adjective before personality, it's countable and I have to use a. I have to use the article a. So, because magnetic is an adjective before personality, it's correct to say someone who's charismatic has a magnetic personality. We need to use a.
So, like, if I had a good personality, that might make it so girls really like me, but I don't. So...
And what does age matter if you have a good personality, right?
They used to study the bumps in your head to see if you had a good personality or not.
I was always the sister with good common sense, but Tessie was always the one with personality.
You certainly have personality.
As I'd never been popular in school and didn't have a lot of personality.
That pooch has personality.
It's got a lot of personality, I think.
Another example. He has a good personality. Because I use the adjective good, I have to use the article a. He has a good personality. He's interesting, he's fun to talk to, he's always happy, he's always in a good mood. He has a good personality. Let's practice. Does he have a good personality? That's right, he has a good personality. This is also not correct.
Someone who's charismatic has magnetic personality. Most of creators on YouTube are really charismatic because they attract attention.
It's not correct to say most of creators on YouTube are charismatic. It's not correct to say most of creators on YouTube are really charismatic. When I say most, and I use of, the preposition of, I have to use the article the. I cannot say most of creators. I have to say most of the. Most of the creators on YouTube are really charismatic. With most of, use the article the. It's correct to say most of the creators on YouTube are really charismatic. We have to use the article the. Let's talk about the different ways we use most. To talk about the majority. You can use most with no of and no the. You can say most students. Example, most students. When I say most students, I'm speaking in general, not about a specific group, just in general, most students. But if I want to talk about a specific group, then I say most of the. Again, if I say of, I need to use the. Most of the students. in a specific group.
Well, that means that most of the valley's sold in the last few months.
We have established that most of the people who have this disease got it in a bathhouse.
As far as expulsion goes, most of the students here have already been expelled from someplace else permanently.
Well, most of the students in this show have wives and kids and homes, and so, well, they're not exactly teenagers.
He says polls show most of the people are still on his side.
Most people never get to see how brilliant they can be.
It comes as a distinct shock to most people when they realize how limited and how inaccurate the human senses really are.
Most people don't even understand how insanely difficult it is to attempt a triple axel.
Most students spend a lifetime studying the master's way.
Oregon student Emma Ward and her friends were having a party, celebrating the end of the semester like most students.
Example, most of the students in this class are boys. The majority of students in this class are boys. I can use most of the. Most of the students in this class are boys. Let's practice. Are most of the students in the class boys? That's right, most of the students in the class are boys. This is also not correct.
My team and I have created a workbook that has 1,000 most used words in English and is a super helpful tool for you to brush up your vocabulary.
It's not correct to say my team and I have created a workbook that has 1,000 most used words in English. When I use the word most, I have to use the article the most. Well, here we have a number, 1,000. So we put the article the before the number. The 1,000 most used words in English. We have to use the article the. So it's correct to say, my team and I have created a workbook that has the 1,000 most used words in English. We have to use the article the with the word most. And when you have a number, put the article the before the number.
What are the 5 most highly trafficked spots in Livingston?
The protein markers for the 3 most prevalent brain cancers turned up negative.
So, here you go. The 10 most romantic places for Valentine's Day dinner.
The last time he called was when we took Lecter off the 10 most wanted list.
Names of the 100 most famous mathematicians.
Now, in structuring a portfolio for your client, what are the 3 most important rules?
Example, the 3 most populated countries. What are the 3 most populated countries in the world? The 3 most populated countries in the world are India, China, and the United States. Because I use most, I have to use the article the. I have a number, 3, so I put the before the number. The 3 most populated countries. Let's practice. What are the 3 most populated countries in the world? That's right. The 3 most populated countries in the world are India, China, and the United States, in that order. This is also not correct.
Link in the description and the first comment.
You cannot say link in the description and the first comment. You have to make a complete idea with a verb, is. And link is specific, so we need the article the. So it's correct to say the link is in the description and the first comment. I have to use the article the for specific link, the link, and I need the verb is. Because I'm explaining the location of the link, I have to use the verb is. The link is in the description and the first comment. This is also not correct.
Offbeat, meaning outside of mainstream. This photographer has offbeat perspective. His shots are really different and interesting.
You cannot say offbeat, meaning outside mainstream. The word is offbeat, and it means outside the mainstream. Or I can say outside of the mainstream. But I cannot say outside mainstream. So there are 2 ways to say it. Outside of the mainstream or outside the mainstream. Mainstream is popular culture. So if something is offbeat, that means it's outside of popular culture or outside of the mainstream. So I can say offbeat means outside the mainstream. Or I can say offbeat means outside of the mainstream. Both are correct, but you cannot say outside mainstream.
What Bernadette was doing was completely outside of the mainstream, I can tell you that.
way they dressed, and certainly the way they thought was outside the mainstream of American life.
We are outside the mainstream.
Let's hear that again with the example.
Offbeat, meaning outside of mainstream. This photographer has offbeat perspective. His shots are really different and interesting.
The example is not correct either. The example is, this photographer has offbeat perspective. Perspective is countable in this case, so we have to say an offbeat perspective. So it's correct to say, this photographer has an offbeat perspective, meaning her perspective is outside popular culture. Let's talk about perspective. This word is difficult because sometimes it's countable and sometimes it's not. If I say he has perspective, he has a good view of things. He has perspective. But if I use an adjective, like different, then I have to use an article. He has a different perspective. I cannot say he has different perspective. Because I use an adjective, I have to use the article, before the adjective. He has a different perspective. He has a different way of looking at things. So remember, if you use the word perspective with an adjective, it is countable, and you have to use the article He has a different perspective. Or the article an before a vowel. He has an offbeat perspective. This photographer has an offbeat perspective.
Helps them look at things from a different perspective.
And now, with a different perspective, we have Luke Martin, combat veteran of the Marine Corps.
You can step out, get a different perspective, then decide where and how you want to fit in.
Now you have perspective.
It's like you said, I have perspective now.
That's because you have perspective now.
It's hard to have perspective right now, but one day you'll look back on all of this and you'll see that it's all okay.
Thanks. I grew up here, so it's kind of hard to have perspective.
This is also not correct.
And it's a super helpful tool for you to brush up your vocabulary.
It's not correct to say it's a super helpful tool to brush up your vocabulary. The expression is not brush up, but brush up on. In America, we don't say brush up. In England, they say brush up. But in America, we say brush up on. We have to use the preposition on with this expression. So it's correct to say it's a super helpful tool to brush up on your vocabulary. You have to use on. The phrasal verb is brush up on, and it means to improve. To improve something and practice something you haven't done in a long time. Brush up on.
Read some books. Brush up on your history.
We have to brush up on your hospitality skills.
Otherwise, you better brush up on your prison Spanish, because they don't take too kind of gringo drug dealers down here.
Brush up on your basics.
Fair to good. I'll brush up on it.
You brush up on your ethnic studies, my brother.
Example, these students, they haven't been practicing, so they need to brush up on their English. And that's what they're doing. They're brushing up on their English. Using brush in the continuous form, they're brushing up on their English. Let's practice. What are they doing? Are they brushing up on their English? That's right, they're brushing up on their English. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. And if you want to become a member, click the join button. And we'll see you next time.